global crisis. I said 6 months ago, and I'm quoted on this on satellite and in press, that we are heading towards a 10 years crisis. This is not a day or month or year. And the magnitude of this crisis is not what the politicians are telling us. They are all lying. The magnitude of this crisis is a new term that you must learn because it's going to enter into your vocabulary. It's the word quadrillion. Quadrillion is 1,000 trillion. And the size of the financial problem is half a quadrillion, which means 500 trillion. That is the size of the financial papers, what they call the derivatives issue. The derivatives problem in the international market is 500 trillion. And in order to get an idea of the size of this problem, you might want to know that the total GDP of the world is about 60 trillion. So we're talking about a substantial figure. And that figure will not be solved by 700 or another 700 or another 700 or another 700. We will have to go through the painful process of a change in the international monetary, financial, and economic system of the world. That is a crisis, and that is one of the risks. What's going to happen after that crisis? I am scared. Because countries, when they are in crisis, they become unreasonable, and they can do anything. So a lot of unexpected risks are to be expected. We are looking at a changing world order, not only economically, but in world trade, in political and economic groupings, in regional powers, in decentralization of power in the global arena, etc. And there are risks in these. I don't think any country would allow its position to be eroded easily. Increase in violence against increase in injustice. This world is seeing more and more injustice instead of more justice. In spite of every effort that has been undertaken, the world is more and more unjust by the day. And that creates more violence by the day. Wars for economic motives. Economic motives, I always challenge that there is no political decision. Every political decision is an economic decision, either as a cause or as a result. So economics is what moves the world and moves us as well as individuals. I remember many years ago, about 30 years ago, when Bill Simon, the US Secretary, the famous US Secretary of Treasury, who used to wear a pavilion. You children wouldn't remember that. The elderly generation can probably remember. Bill Simon once came to one of the Gulf countries. And I happened to live that story at that time. And that country wanted to liquidate some of its investments into cash. They needed cash. So he came over, he flew, and sat into the office of the Minister of Finance of that country, very politely, and said, Your Excellency, this is your money. We cannot at all question your right to grow it. But if you do so, it will unfortunately damage our national security. And that would prompt some action on our part. And therefore, we beg you not to liquidate these assets, because we don't want to take any action. And that's natural. If you think that any country is willing to put its own interest over yours, you are mistaken. So we have always to remember that there is a risk of economic interest conflicts. Another problem is Western exceptionalization of Arabs. I read with great disgust an article by a called David Brock in the Herald Tribune, March 2006, in which he says Arabs are not like human beings. They are a different race. And Bush was wrong in assuming that Arabs are like everybody else. The Arabs are a different breed, and they should be isolated. They should be contained within a wall and kept away from the rest of the world. And I have that questions the correctness of my statement. Unfortunately, I heard a similar thing from McCain. When that old lady said, Mr. McCain, I want to elect you because I don't trust Obama. He's an Arab. He said, no, ma'am, he's a good man. An Arab being the opposite of a good man. That is a very serious risk, that the world will continue to develop a stereotyped image of the Arab world. And this is not our creation. It is exported to us. And then nobody tells us that we should do an effort to improve our image. When David Brooke writes, he doesn't write because I told him this. It's because he wants to market this thought and this idea to the rest of the world. Sovereign funds. While some of the countries, including practically all the Western countries, have financial problems, many countries have surplus funds, or what is called surplus funds, and I don't like it. I always say these are not surplus funds, these are capital funds. Because the entire wealth of oil in the Arab world is not enough to build a communication and transport network equivalent to that in Europe. Only a network of telecommunication and transport. So this is not surplus. This is money we need because in 50 years we will not have any oil. And this is our capital to develop our countries. Yet, understandably, the West considers that you have surplus funds. And I think I heard somebody very recently that there has been a request made for some 200 billion to aid the failing world economy. Probably for the purpose of the motor industry, because the US government cannot subsidize the motor industry, the three major manufacturers, because it will open a principle or a precedent for all other kinds of companies. So maybe the arrangement is for that money to go there. But this reminds me of the day only a year ago. The IMF, the World Bank, and the US government and the OECD were looking at what they called rules of conduct for sovereign funds. They didn't want the Arab funds to go there uncontrolled. And they were closing the door. And we know that there are many deals that have been turned down for Arab investment. Now we are courting and inviting Arab funds to go there. That is a problem. That's a risk. It is not easy. You have to think. Now we're talking about billions and hundreds of billions of problems. An internet blackout. I can imagine. One day you wake up in the morning and there is no internet. And this is not unforeseen. This is an imminent risk. It can happen any day as a result because all the basic root servers of the internet are located in one place, and the problem can be very disastrous. And the whole world will be paralyzed. So that's a risk. Democracy is a risk. When a democratic government was elected in Algeria, we didn't like those who were elected, so we didn't want democracy. When an elected government in Palestine was not to our favor, we didn't want democracy anymore. So what do we want? Benevolent dictatorship, the rule of government, good governance, but democracy, which has been very strongly in the last few years marketed, is a risk. If you want to tell me that democracy means the vote of the majority, then you have to accept the vote of the majority, and the vote of the majority very often is not the right vote. But that's a risk.